different answers that you probably could come up with. And there are probably so many different things that you said. If we went around the room, if we were having a Bible class time, and we asked each and every one, what do you think about it? I'm sure there would be all kinds of various answers that would be given. But the cross in the days of Jesus, when it was used for capital punishment, the answer would be it's a place for criminals. That's one of the answers. At that time, it was a place for criminals. A description of it would be a place of shame. Yet the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords who was guilty of nothing was placed there in such a shameful place and hung on that cross. And then we think about what Jesus did in the shame of the cross, yet it was transformed into victory when he arose from the grave on the third day. Shame turned to victory. But this is a time that we're thinking about what Jesus did for us. This is all about Jesus. And what a privilege it is each and every week to remember what Jesus did for us. See, Christ our Lord took on the shame of the cross for me and for you. You could say that the cross was the greatest event in all of history, and you would be correct. The crucifixion of Christ was the greatest event in all of history, and his resurrection. Those combinations, there's nothing that impacted the world more than that. And Christ wants us to remember that. And he instituted the supper so that we will ever reflect on that. And what a privilege it is to reflect upon it. Don't take it for granted. While I'm standing here, people in this community are driving back and forth. Highway 52 is not shut down for the celebration of Christ and remembering his death. It's not shut down. There's so many people that don't take the opportunity of the privilege to remember and the privilege to remember this Christ, what he did for us at this time. But you, being born again, we have that privilege. And I have that privilege. Let's remember his body and his blood as we partake of the Lord's Supper. Remember, this particular memorial is all about Jesus. It's all about Jesus. Where would you be without Jesus and the cross? Where would you be? Just turn on the TV, radios, the internet, all the social media that's available, and you see where the world is without Jesus. And you're not in that crowd. What a blessing. You know, when Jesus instituted the supper, and as Paul recorded to the Corinthian brethren in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, he wanted his body to be remembered in the bread, and he wanted his blood to be remembered in the fruit of the vine. And that's what we're going to do. And then Paul records this. And this is not in red letters, you know. You think that this is that Jesus is saying this. Paul recorded this to the Corinthians. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. Wow. So easy just to run through this. We've got to be careful as Christians. May we ever reflect upon the cross of Christ at this time and what what he did for us at Calvary.